Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable.
Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake.
A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Last Round Podcast, episode 160. We will, obviously you can see by the title of this week's episode, we have the son of the legendary Evander, Holyfield, on this week. That interview will be a little bit later in the show. But jumping right into it, this past Saturday, the 15th of January, from the Turning Stone Resort and Casino from Verona, New York, on ESPN Plus and BT Sport, Joe Smith Jr. stops Steve Gerrard in the ninth round with a knockout, pretty much a knockout in the ninth round, essentially, and retains his WBO light heavyweight title. If you listen to last week's episode, we had Steve Gerrard on as our guest of the week. But unfortunately, he came up on the losing end and had his 18-fight win streak snapped to Joe Smith Jr. What was your reaction to the fight outcome, Mike?
I mean, it was hard because, Steve was on the show, real nice guy, great, good talker, great analysis of other fights and stuff like that. But really, it looked like it was more of a sparring. It looked like Gerrard had got into like a sparring mode and just kind of looked to survive. Joe Smith was thrown with bad intentions as normal, and it just seemed like Steve just couldn't get anything off, and he was just kind of like just looking to survive, unfortunately. You could kind of see early on that Joe Smith had him kind of where he wanted him and was eventually going to get him out of there. Onwards to bigger and better things, bigger and better fights. Callum Johnson's probably missed the boat now. Anthony Yarde maybe.
Do you think Callum Johnson? I feel like that still might be in the cards. Do you think that's over?
I think it's over because, like I think we touched on last week, I think Anthony Yarde is a bigger commodity, and I think obviously it's a business. And I think Callum Johnson had the perfect chance now, and then obviously it would have maybe have been like Anthony Yarde, Canelo, Beterbiev, Bivol, later down the line. I think it's just if Frank has a good relationship with the WBO, and I think we'll probably see Anthony Yarde, unfortunately, moved into that position now. But this ended up being a voluntary, so whoever Joe Smith's mandatory is, I imagine will be next after Stephen Gerrard was kind of changed into a voluntary fight for him. So, but it's a good division. It's one of those divisions, kind of like lightweight, where in the world and in terms of just in the UK, there's so many good fights to be made, but will they be made?
Exactly. I mean, I agree with your analysis there. It was hard. It was hard to watch it from an extent just because we had Steve Gerrard. We spoke to him. He was a real nice guy. He gave us his valuable time here on last week's episode. But like you said, I think there was just a point where he got in there and he felt the power, and he just felt he experienced the boxing ability of the world champion, the WBO light heavyweight world champion, Joe Smith Jr. And I think he realized, okay, this is a lot different than I thought it would be, and it just, maybe he just wasn't prepared for it, or his expectations weren't worth what he expected in a sense. They weren't there essentially. But like you said, it just seemed like it was a sparring session, and it felt like he wanted out of there. Essentially, he wanted out of there, and Joe Smith just kind of went in there and did his thing. After the fight, when Joe Smith Jr. was getting interviewed in the ring, he talked about Bivol, Beterbiev, Canelo was thrown in there just because Canelo's obviously going from like 160 to 175 and blah, 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 blah. And I did appreciate how Joe Smith Jr. said he wanted, I believe he said he wanted Beterbiev, or he wanted a fight with Beterbiev, and then Bivol. Essentially, he wanted, I think he implied or he actually said that he wanted to fight all the champions at 175 pounds first before he would get a shot at Canelo. I believe, am I wrong, or did he say something like that?
That's the way I remember it. They said that he wanted all those and then Canelo.
I think that's, I get, because with the cash cow comes in and you're just like, hey, you have an opportunity to fight Canelo. Oh, but I didn't fight any of these guys in my division yet. Obviously a lot of people, 99% of fighters are going to take the money route. They're going to be like, okay, I'm going to fight the cash cow. If I beat him, it'll be great for my career and, et cetera, et cetera. But he actually said, hey, my plan is I want to fight the other guys in my division who have titles. Bivol, Beterbiev, and pretty much if he gets through both of them and becomes, the unified champion or undisputed champion, then he gets a shot at Canelo. I think any boxing fan, whether it's a casual or hardcore boxing fan, can really respect that kind of personality or that kind of ability from a fighter who says, no, I'm going to fight all the champions. It's like Canelo did last year. He's like, I want to be undisputed at 168. So he fought all the guys who had titles, regardless of what people say, like, he was outmatched or he beat this was, a mismatch or whatever, or this fight sucked. But it didn't really matter because all those guys had titles, and Canelo Alvarez, his goal at that time was to become undisputed super middleweight champion. So he's like, okay, I'm going to go after all the guys with titles, And I feel like Joe Smith, let's just say hypothetically, he beats Beterbiev and then he beats Dimitri Bivol. And he, for some reason or another, he gets a Canelo fight at 175 pounds. Wouldn't you think he'd be a lot better prepared to fight somebody like Canelo, even though he's the bigger guy? But Canelo has already shown that his boxing ability and his power translates in the weight classes that he's been in, right?
No, yeah, it's true. It's just different, isn't it? You see a lot of people will take the easiest route they can to get the highest ranking they can, and then they try to kind of sell out. Prime example, probably Christopher Lovejoy. Went down to Mexico, got 18, 19, knockouts, a lot in the first round. Managed to get himself a shot against, Manuel Cha. Cashed out for a couple of $100,000 or whatever it was. And, kind of paid off, I guess, taking the short journey from LA down to Mexico for a few $100s to get a fight.
Do we know who the mandatory is? Does it seem like it's going to be Anthony Yard?
I believe so. I think it is Yard, yeah.
I honestly, I think that's an intriguing fight too. Who do you think would be the favorite in that?
That's a good question. I would still go with Joe Smith just due to the fact of the caliber of opponents that he's had. Obviously, I wasn't the biggest fan of Anthony Yard. I thought he was all show and no product. Even when he got in there with Kovalev, and then obviously he was taken apart by Lyndon Arthur. But then, in the rematch against Lyndon Arthur, that was by far the best performance I think we've seen from Anthony Yard. I thought he showed a lot more. A lot of the times he used to try to because he had so many easy fights and he was just blowing people out, he would just pot shot. He would just kind of cover up, do fancy little movements, throw one shot, kind of stand back, admire his work. And then when he got in there with Lyndon Arthur, he realized that's not going to work. This guy's just peppering me with jabs, and in his mind, he still thought he was doing the right thing because I think he got such, he fell in love with that style and that, just pot shotting people from outside. And then when he got in with somebody who could actually take a punch, it became unstuck. But to answer your question, to me, in my opinion, I think Joe Smith Jr. would still, go in his favorite against Anthony Yard because, Yard's really had, 3 big fights, Kovalev and the 2 fights with Lyndon Arthur.
Right.
Joe Smith Jr. has been in there with, a whole host of different, names.
No, right. I could see how you arrived to that conclusion. I'm not opposed to that fight at all. I think it's intriguing. I think, like you mentioned, with Anthony Yard's win in his rematch against Lyndon Arthur, he looked very good. So him coming off of that fight, and then especially if he fights one more fight soon before he fights a Joe Smith or what have you, if that's potentially in the cards, and he looks just as good or even better than he did in the Lyndon Arthur rematch, that's only going to fuel the competition in a fight with Joe Smith Jr. So as of right now, as of this moment, I would look forward to that fight. And Frank Warren has Anthony Yarde, Joe Smith is essentially, is he with Top Rank? Joe Smith Jr.?
Yeah, he's still with Top Rank.
He's Top Rank, right? Yeah. You know, and Frank Warren and Bob Arum, Top Rank, have a relationship. It can be made, you know, because all parties have open lines of communication. So we'll see. But I mean, Artur Beterbiev is also there.
Top Rank.
Top Rank. So if you ask me, you know, out of those two, I'd rather see the Beterbiev fight because they both have titles, you know, throw them in there. And then whoever wins between them, ideally, even though he fights on DAZN and he's with Matchroom, you'd want to unify with Dimitri Bivol, you know, and I'm sure Eddie Hearn, he'd want it on DAZN, but it's highly likely that Bivol would have to go to ESPN for that unification fight, you know. But yeah, you know, Joe Smith Jr., he's one of those guys, you know, I feel like he's had some losses during his career, but he's really rebounded from those and really shown that he has like that world championship caliber ability. And he keeps going. I mean, there's a chance he could beat a Beterbiev. You know, Beterbiev is older. People need to remember that. He's older. Obviously, he can punch. He's got power. Steve Jaffrard said last week when he was sparring him, he was like, that guy punches hard. Like, he felt his power. But Joe Smith is a big kid too, you know? So we'll see. But that, like you said, that whole division, even if you take Canelo out of it, because he's really like not there. He's had one fight there. But if you take Canelo out of it, or if you keep him in there regardless, that whole division is very competitive. There's some good fights to be made, which is very, very interesting. Moving on to fight previews. This upcoming Saturday, the 22nd of January, from the Borgata Hotel Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey on Showtime. Gary Russell Jr., 31-1, makes his annual reappearance as he goes up against Manny Pacquiao Promotions' Mark Magasayo, and this is for Gary Russell Jr.'s WBC featherweight title. I saw the last time when I was first made aware of Mark Magasayo was, I think it was last year on a card I think it was a Showtime card. I was impressed, but Gary Russell Jr., in his annual fight that he fights pretty much every year, he still has the speed, he still has the talent, and it's like he still knows, like, okay, I'm gonna fight once a year, but like I still keep sharp, like he still stays in the gym just to keep work out. I hope it's exciting, but am I wrong for thinking it's not going to be, and that Gary Russell Jr.'s gonna take it maybe in a one-sided victory?
It's funny you say that because you forget about him because he only fights once a year, but when he does fight, you get a few rounds in and you're like, man, this guy is good. Like if he fought on a regular basis, even just what we would class as a championship regular basis, 2 fights a year, that's what like the majority of the big champions do because they get such good paydays. I think he'd be up there, top 5 pound for pound or something like that, because his hand speed and the quality of what his work, the combinations that he puts together. Yeah, he just makes really good fighters look ordinary. I think the only thing that's going to really do it is just going to be, like you said, if he's not in the gym as much, away from, because he fights once a year, he's got literally like the rest of the year just to sit at home, get fat like all of us, just watch TV, watch Netflix, binge. And I think that's what it'll be. It'll be Father Time. It'll be when he starts to slip that I think, he'll be out of the gym, he'll come back and he'll get in the ring and he'll just be like, yep, these arms aren't working anymore. They're slower. And we'll just see, he'll disappear, come back and he'll get beat and then eventually he'll probably just slip away into retirement. He's obviously got some good investments and makes good money and has, good quality time with his family. That's one of the reasons why he doesn't fight that often. Probably just fights once a year to, one, to get paid, and to two, to keep the belt so the WBC don't strip him. But yeah, kind of a wasted talent, really. He obviously just doesn't love the business, I guess, like someone like Canelo, because every time like we see him, he's just good, just a really good fighter. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think unless Father Time's caught him in this last year, I think this will be Gary Russell's fight. I think he'll win, and he's been a champion for what, 5, 6, 7 years now.
It seems like it. I think so. I don't know.
His only loss is to Loma.
Yeah,
that says something. And Loma's a different level, a different beast.
Yeah.
So
that just shows you how good. I mean, obviously we know, but like especially at that time, that just shows you how good Lomachenko is and still is. Because after that, Gary Russell Jr. in all of his fights has pretty much dominated his fights. After that, and Lomachenko pretty much did what he wanted with him, which was crazy because Gary Russell Jr. is very, very talented. Tell me if you agree with this or not. Gary Russell Jr. He strikes me as a type of guy like a Miguel Cotto in terms of I remember during the face-off between Miguel Cotto and Antonio Margarito. I believe it might have been the second fight, the rematch, or the first. It might have been the second fight. I don't remember. I believe it was the second fight. Max Kellerman during the HBO face-off, which I miss those, by the way. Those were awesome. Had asked Antonio Margarito if he's prepared to die in the ring, or he had made some statement in some interviews before, and Margarito had said like, oh yeah, I'm prepared to go out on my shield and die in the ring to get the win, for my legacy and blah, 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 blah. And then Max Kellerman turns and asks Miguel Cotto, he's like, what do you think about that? That he says he's willing to die in the ring to get the victory. And then Miguel Cotto's like, that's stupid. He's like, that's stupid. He was like, why do I want to do that? He's like, boxing is just my job. He was like, I have a family, I have kids, I have my wife. He's like, this is just my job. Like that, like Gary Russell Jr., I feel views boxing as just his job, whereas there's a lot of fighters in boxing and MMA, in any type of sport, really, there's a lot of them who it's a lifestyle. Like that's their passion, and some of them will say like, oh yes, fighting is number one. And then it's my family, or it's 1A and 1B. Or they'll say like, it's a tie or it's a close, 1 and 2. But Gary Russell Jr. strikes me as that type of guy where he's like, oh, this is just my job, and I'm good at it when I do it, but that doesn't motivate me to want to do more. If I can get away with doing that and I'm still world champion and still make good money and have used that money for investments and still live well with me and my family, why else do I want to do anything more when it's just my job? I mean, what do you think?
No, yeah, I would totally 100% agree with that. I'm sure it's kind of different, when you turn pro and you've got like all the promotions and the money and, all that sort of stuff factored in. It goes from being like in amateur boxing where you kind of just turn up and you fight, to much more of a business and all the shadiness, and you're trying to get fights and people won't fight you, and then you're asking for more money and you get blackballed. And, unless you're at like a big promotion, like a Top Rank or, like a Matchroom where you're one of their main guys, where you can probably make demands, you can get on the big shows, you get paid well, you've got a promoter that's going to position you into all these positions. I'm sure when you're further down, I'm sure it's ridiculously hard and you just have to wait for those breaks, and you've got to take them when you get, a fight falls off and you get a chance last minute on a Top Rank show, and, you've got to get on that show and you've got to show up and you've got to do something to make yourself a commodity that they want. So yeah, I'm sure like turning pro is probably a lot more difficult, and, it's not all, roses and stuff like that, like we probably imagine.
Right. Yeah. But we'll see, when he does fight, regardless if we'd like to see more of him and he only comes out once a year for one matchup. That matchup like always shows off his skills. It's nice to see him fight. He's quick, he's fast, he's got hand speed, His punches are in great spots. His positioning. It's good to watch him. It's unfortunate we can't see him a couple more times during the year, but when he does fight, even if it isn't, and once a year, I do appreciate it. Also on that card, really quick, King Tug returns. I don't want to pronounce his name. That's so we just stick with the nickname. He returns on this card. He was supposed to take on Vic Pasillas, who was originally scheduled to fight King Tug, but he was forced to withdraw after testing positive for COVID-19. King Tug would now take on the once-beaten contender Sakaria Lucas in a 10-round telecast, which will open up the Showtime telecast this upcoming Saturday from Atlantic City, New Jersey. And obviously we'll touch on a little bit in a couple minutes. Actually, Evan Holyfield is also on this card. It's a non-televised event. I don't think is there anywhere you can watch it? Like if they announce maybe a YouTuber or anything like that?
I haven't seen an announcement, but they may do. They may stick it on like Showtime YouTube page or something like that.
I mean, hopefully, put him on something. But he's Evan Holyfield 8-0 goes up against Chris Rollins, and we'll touch on that fight with Evan Holyfield in a few moments or so. News and notes: Shakur Stevenson, Oscar Valdez is reportedly in talks for a unification bout on April 30th in Las Vegas for the 130-pound world titles. This is great. That's a great fight. And I know a lot of people are probably going to pick Stevenson, which is not a bad bet at all. I think he will probably be the favorite. But I mean, I think me and Valdez always finds a way, and he's in exciting matchups. Like the fights he's in are exciting, and he always finds some type of way to pull out the victory. I hope this goes through. I hope it goes through. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest fights that's kind of been announced, nearly announced for the start of 2022. Great fight, good stylistic matchup. Like you say, I would say it's kind of more like a bull and a matador. Valdez kind of being the bull, and Stevenson just going to be kind of running around, boxing from the outside as the matador. This early stage, I would favor Shakur in it. I think just it's a good stylistic matchup for him. He just got to stay away from Valdez's big hands, though. He's heavy-handed, and I've been wrong before. Well, I think we both went for Burchell in the Oscar Valdez-Burchell matchup. I thought he'd be too big, too strong, and Valdez proved us wrong. So, he has changed his style slightly since moving to Reynoso.
Right. Yeah. So either way, I hope it gets made. They're both top-ranked fighters, so that eliminates a nasty bridge in promotional politics there. So I'm assuming it's going to get made. They always see Top Rank has to deliver for ESPN. ESPN has to get these ratings and, has to have Top Rank live up to their side of the deal. So I can see it happening, and I'm definitely going to look forward to that fight. Also, reportedly, contracts are being finalized for a matchup between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano for the undisputed world titles. I think it's going to happen, especially now that Serrano has somebody like Jake Paul with the power that he has in her corner. I think it's going to happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, having someone like Jake Paul that's already loaded, already making millions of dollars, means that when he's kind of helping you out and, you're using his management firm, he can take a really small slice because, he's already making mega bucks from, all the ventures that he has. It's going to be a great fight, and I think it could be one of the last times you see Katie Taylor. If we're going off, previous performances, I think she has kind of slipped a level or two in, her last performances. Maybe she can turn it on for this big fight. Maybe this is the sort of fight that she can get her teeth into, which I would love that, because then we'd see both of them at their best. But going off the last few performances, I'm actually favoring Serrano going into this.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that before. I could see that. But hopefully Taylor kind of realizes this is probably the biggest fight of her career. So she's going to bring out all the stops. But let's see. let's see. Yeah, I think you're right. I think based on Kate Taylor's last performance, or last two performances, essentially, it looks like she has maybe lost a step. But sometimes fighters rise to the occasion when it's a big matchup. So hopefully it delivers on the hype, because there is some hype behind this matchup, and essentially it could be the biggest female fight in boxing that can be made currently. So hopefully. Also, we're still waiting as of today. We're still waiting on Anthony Joshua to announce his new trainer after Eddie Hearn and several media sources have been saying that McCracken is out. Eddie Hearn has actually said that he's out.
He said it in an interview with Coogan, but I think he worded it that there'll be like additional changes and that McCracken will always be there in some type of way because he's been with AJ since day one. So I'm sure he'll be like an advisor role or something like that. They'll keep him on the pay line.
Yeah, I could see that. That's a way to kind of reward his loyalty. I could see that. I mean, I know we talked about it before in an episode last year, but I really hope he gets. I mean, maybe it's selfishly for us. I really hope he goes with a US based trainer.
Sam Jones said today he heard Robert Garcia.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, he did an interview with Coogan Cassius today.
That'd be great for us because that's Southern California.
It's down the road.
Yeah, and we already know we've been to the Robert Garcia Boxing Academy a couple times, and Robert Garcia, we've seen in interviews and we've heard him say that he has too many fighters that he trains here, young, and veterans and stuff like that, where he can't go to you. Essentially, he can't go to you to train you for like 3-4 months out of the year or something like, because he has such a duty to be here for all his fighters in Riverside, California, and Southern California. So, I mean, would that be any different for AJ? I mean, AJ would have to come to Southern California, right?
Yeah, you would imagine so. And it's going to sound like a strange thing to say, but we know how much business affects boxing. If he did, that gym's sponsored by Adidas. He's sponsored by Under Armour.
Oh, wow.
I wonder how. I mean, it's a genuine question. Like, would that affect anything? Like, he's pictured in their gym constantly. Every single bag, every single ring, every single pad.
Adidas would love that,
right?
Adidas would love that. I mean, like, honestly, like who knows? That's a very good question. And we've been there. We've seen it all with all the Adidas memorabilia and stuff on the heavy bags, the speed bags, gloves and stuff like that. So you're right. That's a very interesting point. Who knows? But if anybody has pull to be like, hey, I'll bring in a team to change it out every time I train, or if there's going to be cameras here, whatever, Ellie Steckback, who knows if he's going to have all this access, but that'd be great. That'd be great for Southern California. That'd be great for AJ's US stock, because then all the American media can have access to him, or he'd get a lot more attention over here in the States.
I'm gonna throw in a curveball. I'm gonna throw in a long shot.
Don't do it.
Right? Gerald Tucker. Trains Tyrone Woodley, Floyd Mayweather, Clarissa Shields, Adrian Broner. AJ's been in Dubai. Floyd's been in Dubai. Gerald Tucker's out in Dubai at the minute. I think AJ's actually back home in London now. But I do wonder whether, like, all the talks with Floyd and listening to Floyd, and, he always likes to take advice. I wonder whether he says, like, he was trained by my pops. He now trains me. Like, he's really good. The selection of this very small selection of fighters that he has have been or are world champions. Broner, Shields, Woodley, Floyd. I'm not saying they were under him.
Right.
But they're like, I'm not saying they won titles under him, obviously, but I'm saying that all these guys are world champions. They've been trained by, I'm sure, some great coaches, and they must see something in him to go with him.
No, right. You're right. Yeah, I think that's a long shot, but I think it's a wild card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I could see it. Yeah. Either way, it's interesting. I think there's a 60%. I'm gonna go 70. I think there's a 70% chance that he comes to a US based boxing trainer. I think so. And I think it's going to be great for his stock, especially his media stock. It'll make him a bigger star over here.
If the thing that's very strange is time is of the essence.
Right.
End of March, beginning of April, I think is the last date I've heard for the Usyk fight. Surely you want to get your trainer picked and get with them as soon as you can.
Right.
Because they're going to be teaching you things and ways to beat Usyk, and all he's done is travel around the US a little bit, went to Dubai for a vacation and probably some business.
Right.
And then he's pictured doing some pads with the Angel Fernandez today. Get over there, you need to learn all these things. He's going to be changing if he comes to the US, he's going to be changing to a completely different style. It's not going to be that slightly robotic European, British, Olympic style. It's going to be something completely different. So get over there. It's not. It doesn't look too good for me. Maybe he just doesn't know what he wants, who he wants, or
right. Yeah. Who knows? But we'll see. It's going to be definitely interesting. I hope it's not like a letdown, but we'll see how it turns out. Also, Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios, who fight at the end of this month on Fox Sports pay-per-view, it has been reported that it will cost $74.95 here in the United States. Thurman has shown that he's pretty good on ratings, but let's see how this goes. I think it's gonna be a tough sell, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes a couple days after or a couple weeks after that fight happens. Ryan Garcia has said, I don't know where he said it, maybe in some interview or some YouTube channel, that he's planning for a 2nd of April return, likely in Las Vegas, maybe in LA. So, the Ryan Garcia situation, let's see when it really happens, and let's see what, it's probably going to be a Golden Boy fighter, Jojo Diaz, Mercito Hesta. 95% it's going to be a Golden Boy in-house fight. But as long as he returns and let's see how he looks, we'll go from there. And then a quote, I guess this was a quote from the Canelo camp, that his next fight will be one that a boxing purist won't like. What does that mean?
I don't know. Does that mean it's going to be more of a war in the trench war? And that's why, because, traditionally a boxing purist, they like, the fancy style, the actual boxing from the outside, the maneuvers. Or are they saying that they won't like it because it's going to be a money grab? It's going to be a Jake Paul. It's going to be Conor McGregor. I just don't know. I just don't really put that's something that Canelo would do. He seems to be traditional, that, like in everything that he does, where you fight the best constantly. Very apart from having a Yildirim, and that really wasn't a gimme because that was forced on him. I just don't know whether that was something he would do, especially in the prime of his career. But at the end of the day, money talks, and if Team McGregor or Team Jake Paul are saying like, "Hey, we could do 200 million here with your buys and my buys," like, show me the money. Is that something he's doing because he knows that 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, that may not be available?
Right.
I guess we'll see. It's what's Cinco de Mayo, so
it's going to be very surprising though. If he does go that route, like a Jake Paul, which is it's so crazy to say. Just because on Canelo's past comments about like a Jake Paul and those types of fights. But maybe he sees like, oh, okay, well, I still have a lot of time to get some really great fights under my belt. And I've already fought some of the best fighters in the world. I've done a lot of stuff. I deserve to have a novelty fight, and make a ton of money and get in the record books for pay-per-views and gates and stuff like that. Maybe they're looking at it like that, He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I've already made a ton of money. It's like Mayweather now, after retiring, he kind of does all these exhibitions, but they're money grabs. Like he knows, like, this is an entertainment business. He's like, oh yeah, you're going to offer me all this money. I'm going to make all this money. Of course I'm going to do it. Maybe Canelo sees that like, okay, well, I know I can fight all these real fighters, but let me jump into this and get a piece of this pie too, since it's there already. Maybe he changed his mind. Who knows? Which is very surprising to me because he's by the quotes and his interviews in the past couple of years, it's he was totally against it, and he would say, "Oh, it's disrespectful to the sport." But like you said, money talks, and who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's his way to kind of give back to Eddie Hearn and DAZN. Like DAZN's like, "Oh yeah, well, if we get a big event like that, it'll help our bottom line." You never know. Maybe it's his way.
Canelo McGregor, imagine.
Yeah,
1.5, 2 million.
Could be, maybe more.
Like maybe.
I think more. But who knows? But we are at that point. Everybody's probably been waiting for. If you've listened to all of our reviews and previews and our analysis so far, up until this point, we definitely appreciate it. But Evan Holyfield is our guest of the week this week. Obviously, he's the son of the legendary Evander Holyfield. We talked to him. We conducted this interview earlier in the day today. We talked to him about his career growing up, how he got into fighting. He talked about, sports he played and how he decided on fighting, how his mom didn't want him to fight, but then he ended up going back, and how there were certain moments in his career leading up to him turning pro where his dad saw him and was like, "Oh, you can fight. You can fight." Kind of gave him that affirmation that, a lot of kids want from their parents growing up, essentially. But it was a great interview. He's a great kid. He loves to talk. He talked for a long time with us. What'd you think before we throw it to that interview, Mike?
Yeah, great interview. He speaks really, really well. Obviously likes to talk, since it was supposed to be a 20-minute interview that went on for nearly an hour. I would estimate. It was great. For people listening in, definitely listen out and listen to the funny Mike Tyson stories that he has. I thought they were really good.
Yeah, they definitely were. And like we said, Evan Holyfield fights this upcoming Saturday on the non-televised undercard of Mark Magasayo and Gary Russell Jr. Holyfield goes up against Virginia's Chris Rollins, who is 5-3-1 with 4 KOs. Evan Holyfield is 8-0 with 6 KOs. But like I said, he's a very interesting young guy. I think he's about 23, 24. We asked him about Mike Tyson and if he ever watched the rematch between Mike Tyson, the bite fight, and Mike Tyson and his dad, Evander Holyfield, and what he thinks and what his reaction when he first saw it. He talked about his time meeting Iron Mike Tyson and how starstruck he was, and his favorite fighter in Manny Pacquiao. He's never met him, but he knows he'd be starstruck. There was a lot of details in the conversation that we had, and we definitely appreciate his team setting it up for us here on the last round. But obviously, we appreciate you guys listening. So we'll see you guys next week as we throw it to our interview of the week with Evan Holyfield.
And now it's time for the last round interview of the week.
Thank you very much for joining us, Evan.
Hey, thank you for having me.
We appreciate it. So, obviously your last name is very famous in the sporting world, primarily in the boxing world, especially. So we'll start with your nickname. Right now, the nickname that you have is Evan Young Holy Holyfield. Now, what we were talking about just before you came, you connected with us here tonight, Evan. Did you choose this name, and what other nicknames did you guys go through the list before you landed on this one?
Yeah, I chose his nickname. I really couldn't think of anything, to be honest. You know what I mean? Because it's not like I had any really real nickname that really stuck on to me. You know what I mean? Besides when I was in high school, because my real name is Eleazar. That's my first name. So all my friends from school who know me from public school, middle school, and high school, they call me either Ellie or Azar. You know what I mean? And but I just knew from the simple fact of going through high school and stuff and telling people my name was Eleazar, especially the teachers or older folk, it was really hard for them to pronounce it. And it took them a while for them to really catch on and, and pronounce it right and stuff like that. So, that had kind of came through my head when I was actually picking my ring name, because I was like, I wanted to use my first name, but, I knew it would cause trouble and it'd be hard for a lot of people to remember me. You know what I mean? So I just went by using my middle name, Evan. So, but the way we got Young Holy really is, it really isn't nothing, too serious or anything. Like, we was going through a lot of names and, people kept trying to call me the New Deal and stuff like that, but I really didn't like that or anything like that. Yeah, it's a clever name. It's clever, but I felt like it was just too it was too close to my dad's thing, my dad's moniker. So, I really want to be individual to myself. But the whole way I got Young Holy is, we all play video games. Well, at least, from my understanding, most of us play video games. So, I was young and shit, and whatnot. And, just like every young person has a problem is back on the Xbox 360, I wanted to get some Rated M games. And I didn't want to tell my parents about it. You know what I mean? So I had to come up with a fake email. Yeah. So that was my fake email from 2008 or some shit.
so it's no longer active, that email?
No, I still use it. It's just like my spam email. I'm like 60 years old on that email. I'm a for real granddad. I'm definitely not Young Holy. I'm Old Holy on my email.
So Evan, I'm sure in the boxing world, sometimes, especially when young fighters start off their career, they start off with a nickname, but then as time goes by, and especially if there's like a significant moment in a fight or anything like that in their career as it progresses, sometimes or most of the time they get a different nickname as their career progresses. Do you think that'll happen to you, or do you think you'll stick with this nickname for your whole career?
I feel like, when things happen, things are supposed to happen sometimes, but like, I'd hope, somebody would come up with some other nickname, but I really think I'm going to write this one out, because that's the whole reason why I left out the O, because if I were to put the O in it, it's going to be sooner or later, I'm going to be like 30 or 40 and I really won't be young no more. So I had to take out the O and stuff, to give it kind of like a, 2008 rapper vibe, Young Yeezy vibe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. So, growing up, I believe you started how old were you when you actually seriously started training to fight?
I remember I had my first fight when I was 8, but after that, my mom took me out. So I got to say around like 13 or 14. I had to be like in like 8th grade going to 9th when I really like for sure started taking it serious. Like I'm talking about, I stopped all of the sports just to focus on boxing because I feel like that's the only way to really like for real like progress. You know what I mean? Like I was on YouTube and stuff, and I seen a lot of young. I don't know. For some reason, there was a lot of young prodigies coming up during that time. Like it was like around like 2010, 2012 type deal, and these people were just focusing on boxing. You know what I mean? And watching videos around and stuff like that. I remember I came across Earl Spence. This is back when he was getting ready for the Olympics. He was talking about how he had started boxing, just doing boxing at 15. Like he quit all the sports type deal, and that kind of motivated me to they give me hope and be like, yeah, even though I did have a little bit of a later start than some people, I can still learn, and I still have time. Just not just because I'm 15 doesn't mean I'm too old or anything. Because I feel like there's a stigma about that in sports. It's real easy to get shied away when, you're young, you're 15, 14 or whatever, and you're starting to box, but, you're boxing against kids who've been boxing still been 8 or whatever. You know what I mean? And it could really intimidate some people. But it's really just about, just recognizing, it's just like school and everybody learns at their own pace. And, just because you may not get it just like the other person got it as fast, it'll eventually click to you as time goes. You know what I mean?
Evan, I read that you showed promise in Taekwondo and actually participated in a national Olympic qualifier.
Oh yeah. I did the Olympics. Probably for I did the Olympics. I did the Taekwondo probably for really 3 years, 4 years maybe, and just like boxing, when I first started, I really wasn't that good. But towards my latter years, like probably my last 2 years, I really started. My coach, his name is Greg Lloyd. He really kind of woke me up or instilled something into me, into the fact of like competitiveness is not just about, losing is not okay. You know what I mean? He had instilled that into me, like probably like at a young age, and I started understanding losing. It's okay to lose as long as you give it your all. You know what I mean? But at the same time, losing isn't to be glorified. Like, you know what I mean? Y'all don't get the same medal. You know what I mean? There's some, the work that you put in really is something, it really is something that shows. And I remember that was my first time actually like, getting to understand that and actually separating myself from everybody from like, some people are okay not giving their all and some people give their all. And, those are the people who get over that hill, and stand on top of that hill. So I feel like Taekwondo really helped me with that, helped me understand that. And then, just winning the nationals for the first time and actually being first place in something on a stage or something like that. It was something new to me. It was something like, when I feel like once you get a taste of it, you kind of just want to get it more and more. You know what I mean? So like the first time I was number one in the nation, but the second time I came back, I actually got disqualified because, I ain't gonna lie. Old boy who got me, he was good. You know what I mean? He had did some spinning hook kick, like Karate Kid type shit. And he had caught me, you know what I mean, in my head. And I was like, I was mad, you know what I mean? I wanted to get those points back. So I started throwing punches and I started catching him in his neck, in his face, you know what I mean? So like, the referee was like, all right, you can't be punching him in the face. So like, you know what I mean? But you're allowed to punch people in the stomach, in their chest area. So like, I think next time, like next round, I punched him in his chest or something. And he had somehow, some way fell back, like on a knee or something like that. So when he fell back on the knee, I just ran up to him and just drop kicked him. And yeah, that mess has lost me the fight. And something like that was like, hey, if you're gonna be doing all that crazy, stuff, you might as well just box, And then, a year later, I started boxing for real, because it was something I really wanted to do.
Now, was your dad, like you said your dad told you that, like, you might as well just box if you're going to be crazy like that. Like, was your dad hard on you? Like, even in those Taekwondo days, was he like one of those hard parents, especially since he's a legendary fighter himself?
Actually, now to me, he'd be more surprised that, he really let me do my own thing. Even though he was telling me I should box after that tournament, it's not like he was really pushing for it. You know what I mean? He really let me, fall into it myself and really just, come to him with it. Tell him I wanted to box. It wasn't going to be, someone so hurt. I heard he may want to box, or I think I want you to try this out type deal. He really let me figure it out for myself, or really just find out I wanted to do it for myself. But as far as my Taekwondo, no, not really. He's actually a busy man, to be honest. So during that time, I'm pretty sure he was still boxing or training. So he'd be more so consumed with his own things. But when he heard about me, or when he knew I was making it to the nationals and stuff, he was definitely supportive of me and, congratulated me. And I remember when I got back from my first nationals, he was like, we had the whole family with us, you know what I mean? We was coming back for church, and he said, oh yeah, Edmund gets to pick where we eat after church, because he's the champ today. He's the champ this weekend. So, I remember that. So like that forever made me feel good. And, it's just kind of like one of those memories you kind of think of, and you be like, oh yeah, I like winning because, the champ get to eat where the champ want to eat, man. You know what I mean?
The big question is, Evan, where did you eat?
Shoot, I was naive at the time. I think we ate at Golden Corral.
Simple man, how you're a simple man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, them rolls.
Evan, was there ever any talk of your dad actually training you as an amateur or a professional?
He trained me as for my first fight when I was like 8 years old. Shit's crazy. He only taught us the 1-2, and we was already inside a statewide tournament that very same day after learning the 1-2. And me and my brother, we both won. My brother Elijah, he plays in the NFL now, but we both won, and it was like a tournament went on for like 2 or 3 days. And I remember I didn't end up having a lot of people in my division, so I think I only fought like one day, but that was good enough to get me number one in the state of Georgia. And my brother was a weight class above me or two. And I remember he hit the fight 2 days or something like that. And yeah, we both ended up being ranked number one in the state. So you know.
What other?
But
what
after
oth-
that, my mom
Go ahead.
didn't want me to do it no more. You know, she didn't want me to box no more. So she made me play every sport. Like I'm talking gymnastics, wrestling, track, you know, of course, taekwondo, football and stuff like that. So, you know, I definitely had my fair share of picking sports, but surprising, the one that made me feel the most individual to myself was boxing. And that's the one I chose to stick with.
So was your mom, because obviously we've heard this before, especially with young fighters or even, you know, veteran fighters as they were, you know, kids growing up and fighting. But one of the parents doesn't want them to fight. Was your mom like did she not want you to fight because of like the violence that there was involved in, especially because has seen your dad fight all these years?
Yeah, I believe it was really because of that. You know, my mom still to this day doesn't even like watching me fight. And like, she hasn't seen me fight one time. You know, she'll be there type deal. Like, you know, literally like she'll be there and like right as the bell rings, she'll like take off. She like goes somewhere and just prays. You know what I mean? I feel like it's probably better that way because, you know, Lord knows what she'll do. If she thinks I'm, you know, if she thinks I'm getting hurt or she sees me get hit, she'll try to slide in the ring. And, you know, it'll be a triple threat. You know what I mean?
So who convinced her? Did you have to like sit her down and talk to her when you went back into boxing, like around 13 years old, or did your dad have a conversation with her, or what happened?
I'm sure. Well, really, it was me because, you know, my mom pretty much. I grew up in a single parent household, so my mom was pretty much taking care of me. Except towards the time where I really started to box, my dad was living with us too. But I know I for sure really told her. You know what I mean? She kept asking me if I really wanted to do it, and I was like telling her like, yeah, I want to do it. You know what I mean? I'm like one of those people. Like, once I pretty much have my mindset, it's pretty much hard to get my mind off of. You know, it's pretty much hard to change my mind unless I change it myself. You know what I mean? Like the only person that's really gonna convince me is really gonna be myself. So you know, I told her, oh yeah, I was gonna do it, and then you know, a couple practices happened and stuff like that. And you know, like I said, it's easy to be intimidated, you know, in boxing, especially when you're like, you know, brand new and stuff like that. And you know, like you're going against people who are a little bit more experienced than you. It just kind of feels like you can't defend yourself almost. That's really what it feels like. Because boxing is really an art. It's not just like, you know, you just know how to fight or you don't. It's kind of like there's tools and tricks to the trade. So like, you know, I was getting caught at first, you know what I mean? But it wasn't nothing new. It's not like I wasn't used to getting hit or contact sports because I was doing taekwondo and stuff. But no, people was getting the best of me in sparring, especially like I say like for like the first year, maybe 2 years, people was getting the best of me. And it'd be times I'd be wanting to cry and stuff, and I'll come back in the car, busted up and whatnot, and my mom be like, well, do you want to quit? You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with quitting, you know, and doing another sport. And I always told her, like, no, you know, I'm gonna figure it out. You know what I mean? And come down to later, my dad told me this probably like a couple months ago. He was just laughing about it. He was like, yeah, I remember when I first started taking you to practice, he was like, man, he said, I didn't want to tell you, but, you know, you wasn't all that, but I wasn't going to tell you to quit. I was just going to let you quit on your own. You know what I mean? I was going to see how long you were going to go. But people was like, but amazingly, you never quit. You just kept on going through it. You know what I mean? And then, you know, I started getting old enough to take my own self to practice. Not, you know, like with a lot of young kids these days, I feel like a lot of young kids really don't know what they really have a passion for, because as long as your parents take you to the sport or take you to practice or wherever you got to go, you know what I mean? Then you're going to be there. You're going to be there. But the moment the responsibility shifts over, just like, you know, kids going to school, you know, as soon as the responsibility shifts over and it's your own choice to go to school, hey, some people show up, some people don't show up. And it's only going to be if you care. If you really care about, you know, your goal that's ahead of you, you're going to show up there. You're going to be there every day. You know what I mean? You're going to make it on time. You're going to do whatever you got to do. So, you know, when it was my time to really get myself to practice, I was still taking myself to practice every day and never missed a practice session. And I just kept on chipping away at the block, even though I wasn't the best. But I could see myself getting a little bit better, you know, just with like, you know, me going to practice and stuff like that. So that really made a difference. And I felt like after like a couple years and stuff like that, and I started doing golden gloves, and it started becoming from me just going to the golden gloves, and maybe I may get put out like the first day, you know, on day one. I started making it to like the semifinals or finals, you know, and I was just getting beat by like the best person there, you know what I mean? And then I started seeing that, and I was like, okay, I don't win against the best person in the state, and this person's supposed to be ranked in the United States or whatever, and I'm still able to compete with them. It's not like they're not normal. And I started seeing that and started believing that. And then next thing you know, I'm at the USA qualifiers and stuff like that. And the first time it happened in Mexico, I went against somebody who was like number 3 or something like that. And, you know, I thought I won, but it was split decision. And that's really when I really started, like, you know, my eyes started opening up. I'm like, this guy was number 3 in the United States, and he's supposed to be number 1. Well, he used to be number 1, blase. But I was like, but I could see it. I was really giving it to him, you know what I mean? So it gave me more confidence. And then my dad had called me because he had watched it on the computer, and he was like, G7, he was like, you can fight now, you know what I mean? Like, you can pretty much fight anybody, you know what I mean? And he was like pretty much co-signing, and he was like, hey, what you got to do is you got to go to the Eastern qualifier since you just went against number 3, because you already know the number 1 and number 2 on the team. So you need to go to the Eastern qualifier and see what you can do there and see if you can end up making the USA team. Then, you know, a couple months went by, and I did the Eastern qualifier for the USA team. And, you know, the first time my dad watched it on the computer, but this Eastern qualifier, hey, he was there this time. You know, he made he made a point to come. And my first day, I think I went against somebody from California. I UD'd him. You know, I honestly think I should have stopped him. You know, and I gave him like 3 or 4 8 counts. Then the second person I fought, this guy from DC, and my dad was actually concerned about the guy from DC, and I didn't even know who the guy was, but my dad knew who he was. So he was like pretty much telling me like, hey, you know what I mean? He's not trying to worry me, but he was like, hey, you know, you got a good fight tomorrow. You had a good fight the first day, you know, let's see what you can do, blah, blah, blah. And then I fought the guy and stuff like that, and I ended up beating him. It was like UD, I think that was UD. And like, but after that, I see my dad's whole like attitude had shifted or changed ever since then. Like from that point on, you know, it felt like we had more things to relate about because he actually knew I can, you know, he told me, he was like, hey, you can really box, blah, blah, blah. You know, that guy was ranked. I was trying not to tell you that he was ranked, but hey, look, you did your thing. You boxed him just like anybody else. You know what I mean? He was like, you're a good boxer. And he said, he felt like he could have cried watching me box because he said, I'm reminding him of himself or something like that. And so like the next day went by or the next 2 days, and I was in the semifinals, and the only person, I ain't gonna say he beat me, but the only person who edged me out was the team captain of the USA team. You know what I mean? And honestly, I thought I won that fight too. But yeah, I'll give it to him. He was strong. I'll give him a hit, not so, and stuff like that. But after that, my dad had took me home, and he was like, he had insisted that I come home that very same day. He was going to drive me home, and he didn't want me to go home with the team. And he was just telling me like, he was like, yeah, I think you should go pro. Blah, blah, blah. He was like, you know, at this point, if you're fighting up on that level and you're giving these people a run for their money to where, you know, it could be either way, or really, and he was like, in my eyes, I thought you won, but you already know how it goes. He said, I say you should see what the USA team does with the alternate decision. And then after that, you should be able to figure out whether you want to go pro or not. And he was telling me about these people he knew out in Texas and stuff like that. So he gave me the blessing to turn pro after watching me boxing that tournament. And that really made me, you know, feel good because it's not like, it's nothing like, you know, your coach and like, oh yeah, you should turn pro, you know, because you already know how that conversation can be or how that scenario can be. You know, a lot of people get used up. But for my dad to actually give me the go ahead, you know, and the green light to turn pro really meant the most to me because my dad ain't no BS type guy. He ain't no, he's not no cookie cutter guy. And I feel like I'm like that too. You know what I mean? Like if you ask me to read a book that you wrote or listen to a song that you made and it's just not it, I'm gonna just tell you it's just not it. You know what I mean? Like it's not gonna help. It's not gonna help you. It's not gonna help anybody me lying to you, especially if I don't think it's it. You know what I mean? Just like it's not gonna help me if you told me I should turn pro and I really wasn't ready because that was his ultimate result in me getting hurt. You know what I mean? So my dad was real serious and adamant about that in boxing, being able to defend myself and doing things the right way. So I feel like I took the almost like the long and unpaved route, but for sure it makes sense now because with each and every fight, you know, I pull off from my amateur experience and stuff like that because I've had so many fights, like around 70, 80 of them. And then not like, when you're amateur, it's not like you pick your fighters. You just fight whoever they put in front of you. So,
right, absolutely. So obviously you turned pro, and you got your dad's blessing at that one moment. You're signed with Main Events currently. Obviously we know a lot of boxing fans know that your dad was with that promotion for a long time, that promoter. So was there any other bidders in the process to sign you, or did you know, or did your dad know, or did your dad encourage you to go with Main Events?
What happened was when I first moved up to Houston, my dad had set me up with this guy who he had known. Literally, his strength and conditioner trainer had referred him to us and stuff like that. This name was Termite Watkins, Maurice Termite Watkins. So he was acting as my manager and my trainer too. And I had a strength and conditioning trainer named Tim Hallmark who used to work for my dad, and he had connections with Main Events, from my understanding. Tim did. So I'm not sure who all the bidders were, to be honest, because I really didn't have I guess a say so, or really the knowledge of anybody reaching out. But I know for a fact, out of all the people who reached out, Main Events was the one who reached out and was willing to fly out the very next day or something like that to come visit me and have a face-to-face conversation, rather than just trying to give me a check or whatever, or just making a contract happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's just made it a little bit more personable, and made me feel a little bit more special than just being a number in a roster or a name in a roster type deal. Because I feel like that happens a lot, and it's not about, Lord forbid I ever lose, but I just understand that, when you're just a name on a roster or whatever, you can be up for a certain amount of time, but if you have one little slip up, most of the time, these things put you on the shelf and you're just forgotten after that.
Who actually flew out for Main Events? Was it Kathy Duva, or did you meet her at a later point?
It was Kathy and Jolene. So it was, Kathy, and then Jolene is like their vice president and their matchmaker. Like their whole team came out and had visited me. And I feel like ever since then, I've gotten to know them really well, and like we're real close knit like family,
Did you have a conversation with your dad after that meeting? Or was your dad even present for that meeting as well?
No, he wasn't present, but I had a conversation with him after, and it had kind of surprised him that Main Events was reaching out to me. He was like, "Oh, shoot." He said, "Yeah, that's who I started out with." So, it kind of made it more personable. And then the funny thing about it was during the press conference, Miss Kathy had always told my dad, she was like, "Yeah, I met Evander before he had his kids and stuff like that." And the funny thing is, I always called his first child that would be a boxer. I always said I called him to be the promoter. And yeah, so I guess the cards unfolded how she prayed they would.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of your dad's past fights, like, from the first round to the 12th round, or at least to the conclusion of that specific fight? Have you watched a good amount of them, or any of them?
Yeah, I'm pretty much watched all of them. I could say confidently.
Which one? Okay, besides obviously the Tyson ones, which ones stick out in your mind the most?
For sure, those Kawi ones. Kawi, the one I really. Yeah, the first one really, the second one, he stopped him. He stopped him the second one. But the fight I do not like watching is the Riddick Bowe ones. Like, yeah, I don't like watching the Riddick Bowe fights because you're just getting hit too much. Like, that mess is violent. Like, not even to say like I don't like violence or anything, but I don't know. I just feel some type of way every time I watch it. Like, you know what I mean? And god dang. And I'm close to Riddick Bowe too. Like, you know what I mean? That's like one of damn near like one of our uncles now. So yeah, I just feel weird watching that fight.
Evan, obviously you fight this weekend, in Atlantic City. How is it for you to follow in your father's footsteps? Because, he fought there against Chris Bird, Hazeem Rahman, Ray Mercer, George Foreman?
I believe it's an absolute blessing. You know what I mean? Not everybody gets the opportunities to fight on them stages or even stuff them states. And I remember for sure when I was younger, I remember I used to drop by the airport and I used to always look at the airplanes taking off. And I used to always be like, yeah, one day I'll be going somewhere. You know what I mean? Because I didn't get to travel too much when I was younger or, as much as I liked. And, it's just amazing to see that my job is really taking me all over the place.
Where else would you like to travel abroad for a fight?
I've definitely fought in, I pretty much fought in pretty much every place I kind of wanted to fight in so far, except I haven't fought in New York yet. I've definitely fought in Vegas. I've never fought in California, but as far as traveling, going abroad, I definitely want to have a chance to fight in England. You know what I mean? Like the O2 Arena. I wanted to go to Japan at a certain point in time. Australia, perhaps. Just get to see some things I've never seen before. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's what life is all about. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, yeah, you ain't gonna be worried about your money that's in your bank account. You're gonna think about all your experiences and what you got to see and what you got to do. So I hold those things priceless.
So, Evan, you were born in 1997, and 97 is obviously the famous year of the second fight between your father, Evander Holyfield, and Iron Mike Tyson. They call it the bite fight. A lot of people call it that. So obviously you were born a couple months after that fight had occurred. But as you got older, especially as you started understanding boxing more and really watching the sports or watching your dad's fights, when you first saw that fight and that happened, what was your reaction? How did it make you feel?
I was like, bro, this man tripping. That's the first thing I said. I said, damn, really the first time I seen it happen, I had to play that shit back. You know what I mean? Because I was like, man, he was slick with that one. I said, got this man hopping up and down like that. I ain't never seen my dad hop up like that ever in my life. So I had to rewatch it. And when I rewatched it, I was like, damn, he bit him. He really bit him. But really what got me for real is when I played it back again, and he bit that man 2 times. And I said, damn, what he do to make him that mad? Like, you know what I mean? Like, he had to be real frustrated. But to be honest, now, from where I'm standing right now, I understand why he bit that man. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, I honestly, in my amateur days, I've thought about biting somebody. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, not even like on no frustrated thing. Like, I got clenched up and I remember I turned my head to the left side and I was looking at his ear or his neck and I was like, bro, this guy's exposed. Like I can really just bite this man, you know what I mean? But nah, you know what I mean? I feel like boxing is really a hell of a sport. And I'm not saying it's right. It definitely wasn't right. But when you get them punched on like that, you'd be surprised some of the thoughts that will pass through your mind. You know what I mean? And I'm cool with Mike Tyson. My dad's cool with Mike Tyson. And I'm sure he won't do it again, you know what I mean? But everything happens for a reason. And I feel like, it's just a peculiar moment that they'll forever share and remember for the rest of their lives, especially my dad. I'm sure he remembers every time he looks in the mirror,
Evan, I read that Mike Tyson was actually ringside for one of your fights and gave you some advice.
Yeah. He came to one of my I believe, honestly, he may have came to one of my first fights when I had of course I had my first fight when I was 8, but when I came back when I was 15, I believe he was at the first fight I had came back. And boy, was I nervous. I don't even know how nervous I was. I feel like I was more nervous for that fight than I was for my first professional fight. Oh yeah, I was shitting bricks.
What can you talk about, the conversations you had with Mike Tyson and maybe after that fight? Like, what did he tell you?
Oh yeah, I remember before. I was like so nervous to the point like I heard he was coming to the fight, but I didn't really believe he was coming to the fight. You know what I mean? Like, so I had seen my dad and all my brothers and sisters walk in. And I ain't gonna lie, I was nervous when I see all my brothers and sisters walk in because it's like, man, losing in front of my brothers and sisters, we're really my brothers. Man, they're gonna roast the hell out of me. You know what I mean? But all of a sudden I just started seeing the crowd split. And I was like, bro, why is the crowd splitting? Like almost like, you know what I mean? Man, I see before I even see this man, Mike, I smell the weed. And I'm like, damn. I said, you know what I mean? Because I know one of my brothers, he be into that type of stuff. I was like, man, this got to be one of my brothers coming around. Nope, it was that man, Mike Tyson. I remember I was like staring at him, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? It's my first time seeing Mike Tyson. And I remember he was looking around. Like when he got up to us, he was looking around frantically. And I was like, man, I wonder what he's looking for. And he was like, where's Evan? Where's Evan?
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like he was looking for me. And I was like, and at that point my heart dropped. I had butterflies in my stomach. And I was like, man, I hope this man does not find me. You know what I mean? For some reason, I didn't want him to find me. And then, you know, eventually he had started asking around. He had asked all my brothers and stuff like that. You haven't? They were like, no. Evan's right there. And they pointed at me, and he was like, he came on to me. He said, man, champ, you ready? And I was like, damn. I was ready, but man, I forgot about who I was fighting and everything. I was like, man, just seeing you, I didn't know what to say to him. And I was like, man, you smell like weed. I don't even know. Like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be around you. You know what I mean? So, yeah, so it was like that. And then when I eventually got to my fight and whatnot, there was a point in time when my shoelace came loose. And, you know, normally the coach comes over and, you know, they tie your shoe and, you know, you can't get no instructions from nobody. You know what I mean? You know, that's the standard rule. So my coach is tying my shoe. Talk about, I see this man, Mike Tyson, run up to the ring. And, you know, normally somebody stops you. Man, this man started throwing punches. He's like, Evan, you got to throw your punches like this. He starts throwing the combinations and shit. And the security comes up to him. And as soon as he starts throwing punches, that man backed up so damn fast. Like, he was like, nah, I don't want no smoke with this. So, you know, I literally got to get the extra little instructions from my man Mike because nobody was going to stop him. The officials were scared of him. So, like, you know, afterwards, after the fight, I ended up winning it. I think it was by split decision, but ended up getting this crazy-ass hook in and, you know, knock homeboy's helmet sideways. You already know how that shit be. When you get somebody real good, their helmet goes sideways. Yup.
Right.
I turned his helmet sideways on him, you know what I mean? They come in with the 8 count, you know what I mean? And it ended up being enough for me to win the fight or whatnot, you know? So it was a good day. But I remember afterwards, I came out the ring, you know, gave all my family a hugs and stuff, and I gave my dad a hug. And this man, Mike Tyson, said some off the wall shit. Hey, this man told my dad, he said, yeah, that's not your son. You ought to be blessed that's your son because he ought to be my son. You know what I mean? He was like, as a matter of fact, that's my son. That's not your son no more, Evander. That's my son. And he kept saying that to my dad. And ever since then, every time that man Mike sees me, he always gives me a good big hug. You know, always asks me how I'm doing. He always plays that joke on my dad, telling him that how I'm not his son and stuff like that. And he said, you got to be lucky that's your son. And I'd be like, he nice to be laughing about it.
I mean, it's obviously good. I mean, especially boxing fans love to see that, you know, your family, especially your dad and Mike Tyson, after that incident in 1997, get along pretty well now. So, you know, because when that happened, like you said, you saw your dad jump up. You know, you've never seen your dad move like that after he get bit. He jumps up in the air like that. You know, it was a crazy time. So it's nice to see two legendary fighters and their families get along like that. Evan, are you training in Atlanta for this fight, or you, because you trained in Cincinnati before, right?
Yeah. I really be splitting my camps. I'm in Atlanta right now, pretty much. I only stayed in Atlanta for like 2 or 3 days, and that was just to pretty much get my stuff, you know, my uniforms and my all my other stuff and pretty much cut the rest of this weight off. But other than that, I had been up in Cincinnati for I don't even know how many weeks I was up there, but it was definitely experience. Definitely from the South, and that was my first time really actually seeing what winter was really like. You know what I mean? It was snowing up there. It was 17 degrees, mad ashy, mad cold.
It was different, right? Different weather than you're used to. So you fight at 154 pounds, super welterweight or junior middleweight, however you want to categorize it. How's your weight cut? Are you making that weight pretty good right now? Is your body pretty much adapted to it, or do you think eventually you're going to have to maybe go up to 160 as the future comes forward?
Actually, they've been talking about me. They want me to go down to 147 and stuff like that because weight cuts actually severely easy. You know what I mean? Like there's no diet implemented really, except for like on the last like day or whatever. Like the day before I weigh in, it's like the only time I really have to watch really what I eat. But other than that, I eat literally whatever I want until like 2 days before the weigh-in. So like the weight cut's really easy when it never takes away too much. But I think what I truly believe really makes the weight cut so easy is when I was an amateur, I never made weight. You know what I mean? Never cut a weight, never made weight. So like I'd fight at 165, but in reality, I weigh in every tournament, at the 165 division. I probably weigh in like 158, 157 type shit. And so I was never a full-blown 65 or anything. It was just all about, my dad always told me you should be able to box people no matter their size. You know what I mean? Boxing is about hit and don't get hit. So as long as you can master that at a young age, you shouldn't be cutting weight because that's unhealthy. You're not getting paid to make weight. So why not just fight at what you weigh at? So, I feel like that really makes it easier on my body today because, I didn't have to put all those extra miles or all that extra strain on my body making weight as a youngin, as a kid. So I feel like that's the honest reason why my weight comes off so easy.
What's your walk around rate when you're not in training camp?
I'm always within 10 pounds. So, and really being 10 pounds over is really a little bit too heavy. It's me kind of like getting out of shape. You know what I mean? Like if I hit 60, I know I'm getting out of shape or whatever. But for the most part, I'm always like normally in the gym, whether it's just, it don't got to be like I'm getting ready for a fight, but it's just like gym's is part of my day. If I don't go to the gym, I don't know what the hell I'm doing that day. Or I still got to be like really mad busy and something came up, or I don't know. Like I really wouldn't be able to tell you what I was doing if I didn't go to the gym that day. But yeah, like 56, 58 for sure.
It just depends how much Golden Corral you've had.
Yeah, it just depends on what Golden Corral I had, or if I had some cheese or something like that, or a lot of bread, because that's the only thing that would get me is that bread. Man, I was just sort of like, I'll eat a whole baguette, you know what I mean? Just by myself.
Hey, man, I hope somebody from Golden Corral is listening to this. So
right.
You never know, man. You can have a sponsor in your future right there.
Oh, yeah, for real, man. I'll be like, hey, after this win, we going to the corral, dog.
So realistically, you could fight at either 147 or 154 at this point in your career right now.
Yep, at a moment's notice. Just go ahead, slide me that money.
Where do you see as I mean, obviously you're at the beginning of your career. You still have a lot of years ahead of you, God willing. Where do you see your body finally settling in as you get older and your career progresses?
I don't know, because it's like like I feel like everybody's body's like built different. You know what I mean? So like I'd be looking at my dad and stuff when he was younger, and he was telling me like he was making 178 for a bit, and then he said 178 got too hard, so he just wanted to go up. But like I understand, I'm almost taller than my dad now, or I think I am taller than my dad. And he's like he's supposed to be 6'1", 6'2". He went all the way up to heavyweight, but I feel like as each generation goes on, these boys is getting bigger and bigger. And I ain't talking about wide. I'm talking about tall. So like, god dang, these heavyweights, they may not be all skill, except for like, a couple of them like Tyson Fury, Joseph Parker, god dang,
Usyk.
I know. Yeah, Usyk. Yeah, but you see, Usyk is like 6'4". Well, he looks 6. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know he was 6'4".
I think he's like 6'2".
Yeah.
He's not that big.
He's not that big, but he is that big, because 6'4" isn't that big compared to, heavyweights nowadays, but 6'4" is big compared to, you know what I mean? Like to a regular person.
Yeah.
So, I feel like only time will tell, you know what I mean? Like if my body really gets up there and it's starting to fill out, because I feel like I'm still like in a kid body almost. Like I haven't really, I'm not going to say matured, but I haven't really grown into my grown man body or strength or whatever. So I feel like, once that starts coming in and, we start having problems making weight, I'll probably have a better idea. But I can't really imagine being more than 168. What's that? Like super middle?
Right. Yeah. 168.
I say super middle, higher is light heavy, maybe. I don't know, but money talks though. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Growing up, you were, or even now, obviously, but you were a huge Manny Pacquiao fan. Have you ever met Manny Pacquiao?
Nah, that's the craziest thing. Like, bro, I don't met this man Floyd. Hey, like, man, hey, meeting that man Floyd was not cool. I ain't gonna cap. At first, I was going for it, man. And I met this man Floyd. He told me I was going to be a future champion. And I said, oh, yeah, it is ordained. Hey, look, my dad don't say I was going to be a champ. And this man Floyd don't say I was going to be a champ. I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to be champ for real. Next buddy came up in line. Guess what? He told him the same exact thing. I said, oh, hell no. Nah. You know what I mean? And that's when I said, yeah, I'm going to take my talents on to the other side, and I'm going to take a picture with the other guy. And the other guy happened to be Canelo, you know what I mean? And this is back when Canelo was young. He was like, I think he was like 21, 22 years old at this time. No, I think he was 23. He was around there. But the thing is, this man ain't speak no English. But it felt more genuine than what Floyd was telling me. And I was like, damn, I'll rock with you, Canelo. You know what I mean? And I've been a Canelo fan ever since. But no, if I met this man Manny Pacquiao, I'd probably cry. You know what I mean? No cap. And I don't even get starstruck, and stuff like that. Like the only other person that ever had me like real like starstruck or whatever almost was his man Marvin Hagler. And the only reason why it was Marvin Hagler is because I was in the Hall of Fame and I was talking to him and stuff like that. And I didn't even know I was talking to Marvin Hagler. I thought I was talking to some random old guy. You know what I mean? Like he really give off granddad vibes. Like, you know what I mean? Like my granddad, he's cool. He's cool as hell. But he really was reminding me of my granddad. So he used to asking me questions about boxing and shit. No, it's like, good thing I'm a respectful young man. You know what I mean? Because I was just talking to him. I was happy to talk to him because I was like, you remind me of my granddad. Man, I sat my ass back down and my dad was like, oh, you was just talking to that guy? No, I was like, yeah. And he was like, what was he asking me? And I was explaining to him. I was like, yeah. And he was asking me about boxing and stuff like that and what it was like you being my dad. He said, that's Marvin Hagler. And I said, man, stop lying. Man, next thing I know, they said, Marvin Hagler, come up to the stage. That man stood his ass up. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, I was talking to Marvin Hagler. And then afterwards, I had to come back the humble way. And I was like, man, let me see, get a picture and autograph. And he was like, I'll definitely give you one, man. Let me get a picture with you. And I was like, nah, you don't got to worry about that. I said, man, Marvin Hagler, Marvin. I said, man, you the finest, man. You the finest. But no, if I met Manny Pacquiao, I'd probably just die. You know what I mean? And I met some cool people like Chris Tucker and all of them, Floyd, whoever, But the closest I ever got to meet him, Manny was his coach. You know what I mean? I met Freddie and I met Marvin Samodio.
Well, I'm sure, it could happen. It could happen, but even though he's retired, and he's obviously very busy with his political career, I'm sure he's still going to find time to be around the sport of boxing. He's still a pretty young guy, so I'm sure there's going to be opportunities where you can meet him, and but this time you can't use the Marvin Hagler excuse and not know who he is. You're going to know who he is right away.
Oh yeah, spot that man because I just remember I spotted that man Freddie across the lobby. I had somebody interviewing me, and I seen that man Freddie Roach. Man, I took off so fast. I said, Freddie. Interview, and it was like, and the people was like, "Damn, this man just took off." I had to come back and apologize. But I was like, man, that man Freddie got scared too. He was like, "Who is this dude running up on me like this?" I had to stop and explain. I was like, "Bro, my bad." I said, "I normally don't run up on people like this," but I was like, "Man, I'm Manny's biggest fan." Like, but I think I may have a chance of meeting him because the person's going against Gary Russell. His name is Nick Sayo, and that's actually Manny Pacquiao's fighter.
Right. So obviously, like you mentioned, Gary Russell Jr. and Mark Magasayo are headlining this weekend's card on Showtime. You're also fighting on Saturday on the card as well against Virginia's Chris Rollins, who is 5-3-1 with 4 KOs. What do you know about your opponent, Chris Rollins, this Saturday, Evan?
I really don't know too much about him. I know his last fight, he got the fight on the Jake Paul one. On the Jake Paul card, and I think he went the full distance. The only person who's ever stopped him, I believe, is Vito Melanecki.
Yeah.
I think no, and somebody else stopped him, I believe. But all I know is homeboy is 5-3, and his 5 wins, 4 of them things is by knockout. So I know not to get hit by his ass.
Right.
That's all I know. So, you know what I mean? I'm gonna plan on boxing him and seeing where that gets me, you know. And
is your dad gonna be there on Saturday?
I know he wants to be there, but I'm not sure if he's vaccinated or not. And I know that's the Atlantic City protocol. You got to be vaccinated or something to get into the building. Right. So I'm not sure if he's vaccinated or not.
Gotcha. So when are you supposed to travel to Atlantic City? Tomorrow or Friday? Thursday?
Yeah, actually tomorrow.
Okay. So is your whole family? I mean, when you go now that you have you become a pro, you're 8 fights in with your 9th fight coming on Saturday. Is your whole family still, rolling deep with you, like your brothers and your mom and all that?
Yeah, it's like yes, but no. You know what I mean? Because everybody got a job in the day, especially my I feel like actually I'm not gonna say that. I was gonna say I feel like I got 2 siblings that are close. Actually, no, I do got certain siblings that are close to the others. And that's just like life. You know what I mean? Right. But my 2 brothers, my one brother who plays football, I always know he's a busy man. He always wants to come. You know what I mean? But his NFL games be getting in the way. And right now he's in the playoffs. So you know what I mean? Each game is a good check, I'm believing.
Right.
So I'm not too upset with him because as a matter of fact, my trainer camp was in Cincinnati and he plays for the Bengals. So he was right across the street my whole camp. You know what I mean? So we got to spend time with each other. And that's something rare for us to be able to do because he's always so busy with the NFL. Right. And my other older brother, his name is Ewan. He'll make it to whatever he can, but right now, with Corona going on, and he has one of those infrastructure jobs, like one of those jobs that helps the infrastructure of the United States type deal. So I understand when he can't make it. You know what I mean? But as far as everybody else, you know what I mean? Shoot, they just don't like paying for tickets sometimes.
Right. We gotcha. And then, before we let you go, obviously we appreciate your valuable time here on the last round, Evan. You're also going to be featured on an upcoming episode of Legacy on the Discovery Channel, a show that highlights athletes coming out of the shadows of their parents. Can you talk to us about that episode and your whole experience with that?
Oh yeah, I think it's a couple episodes, but shoot, man, I feel like I know a couple of the other athletes that are still featured in it. Not like no, but like I've actually researched them. They got Zaire Wade, that's Dwayne Wade's son. I know he probably can ball. You know what I mean? That's like stuff like the things that interest me are the things that I really can't do. You know what I mean? Like You know what I mean? Like boxing, that interests me. But like the boxers that really interest me are the people that can do stuff that I know I can't do or I've never thought about doing. So like, you know, like Manny Pacquiao, that man fast as shit. Speak fast as shit. Hey, that ain't something I can do, but that's something that really interests me. And I, you know, it's something I always could strive for. But like, you know, basketball is like a whole entire different skill because I was never good at basketball. You know, I played every sport in middle school except for basketball because I knew I was not good at basketball. So, you know, I feel like that's always something interesting to watch. So, you know, I looked at Zaire Wade and homeboy can ball, you know what I mean? And he could really play some ball. And another person up in there is, you know, you may have heard of Randall Cunningham, the quarterback for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. He has a daughter. That plays, not that plays, but runs track. And she's really good. She does high jump and everything. And I believe she broke a couple records during the documentary, like, you know, broke a couple standing records, and then she made it to the Olympics. You know, and you know, that's something extremely rare to do. You know what I mean? Something extremely hard to do. And even my brother, he's in it. And, you know, you can see all the strenuous hard workouts that really go into being in the NFL in the off season. And like, man, I've seen some of them workouts and that shit look crazy. And I remember I used to want to be in the NFL when I was like, goddamn, in middle school. Man, I'm glad I changed that shit because, boy, I'll be looking at them workouts and I'll be like, that looks painful. Not even like strenuous. That just looks painful. You know what I mean? Right. So, you know, you'll get to see a little bit of that. And, you know, you get to see a little bit of what I had to go through, you know, to get to where I'm at right now. And we got it from the start, from me training out there in Texas to me moving to Atlanta, for me having my first fight, you know, on the Canelo undercard, to me having my last fight in Atlanta, you know, in front of all my home fans and on ESPN. I feel like it's going to be a big experience, and I feel like it's going to be really easy. I haven't seen any of it, but I can imagine it'd probably be really easy to get hooked on. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there's a lot of experiences in it, a lot of ups and downs, and you know, it's not everything that it's not like everybody has any idea what all goes to each and every sport. Like you might just think people just wake up and just become good out of nowhere, but it's really not that. You know, these athletes really be having ups and downs in their own life. It's not just all just sunshines and cameras and, you know, and action. You know, people actually have actual lives outside their sport. And I feel like, you know, this would be a good reminder of people really go through shit. You know what I mean? And, you know, the people who go through shit, you know, these athletes that you see on TV, they go through shit, but what makes them different from everybody else is they know how to I don't even know how to say that word. Compartmentalize. Yeah, that's right. The word. That's the word.
There it is.
Compartmentalize. Forget the word. Yeah, but they know how to do that, and they still go ahead and put it aside, and they still go out and do what they got to do. And I feel like, you know, everybody could take a little bit from that. You know what I mean? And learn a little bit and take a page from some of these athletes' books. And yeah, I feel like that's the most about the legacy right there. You know. Just get to see the next upcoming legacy of these kids. I mean, of these, you know, athletes, because, you know, I feel like there's also a stigma out where people have like, you know, great fathers or whatever, or great parents at doing something. A lot of people just seem to believe just because the other people came up through them, they can't be better. But really, every generation gets better. You know what I mean? Like, if you really think about it, every generation gets better. And this is about that one person just wanting to put in the work. And that's really that person's passion, they could really elevate it and take it to the next level. But it always starts with that one person and their passion. So, you know.
Right. Do you know when it's supposed to air on the Discovery Channel?
I heard somebody saying around February, March, something like that. I really don't know myself, but I'm really curious to see. Because I'm telling you, there's going to be some good episodes, like, for real.
That's good. Yeah, so sometime February, March, at least within the next couple of months. So everybody who's listening, keep an eye out for that and check your local listings. But once again, Evan Holyfield, we appreciate your time. You're fighting This upcoming Saturday in Atlantic City on the undercard of Gary Russell Jr. and Mark Magasayo. Before we let you go, Evan, go ahead and plug your social media handles, everything you have upcoming, any sponsors. Go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
All right. First sponsor, Hayabusa. Shout out my boys, Hayabusa. Because, to be honest, there's not a lot of gloves I can put my hands in and really feel comfortable with. And, and really want to punch somebody for real. Because, I've tried a couple brands. I ain't going to say them. But I've hurt my hand in them. And they're no good. But Hayabusa, I really have firm confidence and belief I could punch somebody anywhere on their head besides the crown of their head, because the crown of their head is undefeated. You know what I mean? I can punch anybody anywhere and my hands will be okay for the whole fight. And yeah, that's what it's about. Shout out Hayabusa Combat. And then, and then my second sponsor, Georgia Hemp Company. Shout out to them boys too, because, they are really and essentially what keeps the train going when the days get tough. Because what a lot of people don't know about athletes is, all athletes, your body is essentially a battery. You know what I mean? You'll start out on a Monday and you'll be feeling good, but by the time Thursday, Friday, Saturday come around, your body will be kicking the bucket if you don't take care of it. So Georgia Hemp Company, they're a CBD company, and my belief is you always want to stay ahead of the curve. It's all about maintaining, not trying to come back and pick up all the pieces after, your body done broke down, because sometimes it's too late. You know what I mean? And you already know when it's too late. When it's too late, people have excuses, this, that, these, and those. But it's not about that. It's about staying ahead of the curve. And I believe CBD gives me the advantage to stay ahead of the curve with my body and just keep it maintained and keeping it from, being hurt or being more hurt than what it needs to be, or sore than what it needs to be, just by simply maintaining it with these CBD products. Because honestly, you might hear about it a lot in different industries or different sports. Like NFL, people may get hurt or they may be sore, and the first thing they get their hands on is pharmaceutical drugs. You know what I mean? Like, pills and stuff. I don't know what type of pills you be taking, but still, most pills or most things that come over the counter or pharmaceutical, they often come with a leash. You know what I mean? When I say a leash, I'm not talking about like, a literal dog leash. I'm talking about like a leash as in, they may take these things and they may think in their head, yeah, this is for this one time or just for this pain. But the leash is, there's, the pills come with addiction or some type deal, or sometimes they lead toward other problems down the road. So like, why my dad always told me, why would you want to start something that you eventually going to have to start? Eventually going to have to stop. And I believe that's what these pharmaceutical drugs kind of lead people down that road. Not everybody, but at least a good amount of them down that road, as to the point of they may take these drugs believing that it's helping their pain, but it's not even helping their pain. It's just masking it. It's just disguising it for later on. So when that pain comes back, they're back on that, doing the same thing. But rather than taking the CBD, and the CBD actually could be helping you and helping you heal rather than just masking the pain. There's a difference between masking something and actually working towards or working on something. And I feel like, I'd rather be dealing with this CBD stuff that's not addictive and it's clean and there's no chemicals in it and it's natural. I'd rather just be putting that into my body instead of some chemicals. You know what I mean? You don't know where these labs at. You know what I mean? You don't know what they put into these drugs. That's my 2 cents on the CBD and stuff like that. So yep, shout them out. And my Instagram is, what is my Instagram? Oh yeah, it's Evan Holyfield with an underscore at the end. And my Twitter is Chief Holy. Let me spell it out, because Chief was a hard word for me to spell when I was in high school. ChiefHoly. And I'm the chief of the Holies. So yeah, you know what I mean? And that's just it.
No TikTok?
Oh no, I keep my TikTok private. You know what I'm saying? Because hey, you might see my true personality come out in that thing.
Well, we'll keep that in mind. When maybe you'll get comfortable later as your career progresses and let it out. Who knows? Who knows? We'll see. We'll see. But once again, Evan Holyfield, we appreciate your time here on the last round. Good luck this Saturday in your fight in Atlantic City. And, you're welcome back anytime here, man.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me. It was fun talking to you guys.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.